We're going to call to order this session of Town Council July 15th, 2020 at 5:20. Call to order. President Tiffany Duke, Jordan Hedrick, Hillary Rogers, Rob Hardy, John Hodgson, and Kevin Hensley on the paper.
Yeah, you remembered your last name.
2 times in a row.
All right.
You get a brownie point.
So, as far as the agenda goes, any modifications, corrections, otherwise entertaining motions?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thanks, Jordan. All in favor? All right. Okay, we had some June and some closed session where we discussed it's primarily Dennis in that situation.
You was happy to get that.
Yeah, Zell said that he
He was very emotional about it, but then afterwards, well, you know, I mean, I had expressed a little bit of concern about it anyway at the meeting, you know, just because I think he sometimes exaggerates a little bit, and I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just that he does work a lot, don't get me wrong. But it was just that, you know, Carrie had commented on a couple of things about what you had said on camera, so it was just kind of comical.
So as far as the June and the closed session minutes, if there's no corrections, modifications, entertaining motions there.
Yeah, make a motion.
Approve them as read.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jordan. All in favor?
Wait, we do a lot about it.
Let's see, public, we got Kevin here. Any comment there, Kevin?
No, sir, not much. Most everything I have questions about, you guys are going to cover on the agenda today. So,
Right on.
yep. Everything's getting back to normal on the other side of the mountain, so that's good. Sort of.
How
Yeah.
many cases we got confirmed?
We're still at 10.
We're still at 10?
Yes, ma'am. We've held steady at 10 since, I think, June 30th was the last time a case was confirmed. And there's been spikes all around us, so we're fortunate.
I know.
We're very fortunate.
So, of the 10, is that the 2 that have recovered as well, or is that actual?
They have
active
quit,
cases?
they've actually, no, that's not active cases. They've actually quit releasing how many are still active, so I don't even know if everyone's recovered or not. I know one person I'd heard off the record had had it for like a month and a half and hadn't been able to kick it yet, so, yeah. But I think at the most we were at 2 or 3 active cases, the last I heard, so, yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Rob.
So moving to financial updates.
So, we have currently $121,593.42 in the bank. So, you know, we're being very careful with money, but there, of course, is things that you gotta pay. And I had submitted a June water bill to Meredith to send to TVA, but I think it actually went to, or goes to, what's the guy that is actually overseeing the resort operation, Baker, yes. And so then I guess TVA is going to reimburse Baker's, who's going to reimburse us, and, you know, so I called her today and asked her to see where that's at in that process, and you know, because we really need to be in a position where we're getting the check before the end of the month and we're sending out another bill, you know, to be able to keep on paying the costs up front, because they're so far behind that it makes it very hard if they don't do that. So she's going to look into that and see. We had some people here yesterday that were from TVA that were maybe not the top people that fly in on helicopters because they had to drive in. You know, but they said they were taking pictures of everything, and one guy asked me about if I'd submitted a bill, and so yeah, they certainly are looking for it, which is encouraging in my opinion. You know, that they were looking for it, and then Meredith told me today, because she was up there when we talked to the ones that fly in on the helicopters, and they had said that they would cover our May too. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done and sent in, and hopefully we can get for both May and June, and that would help a lot. So that is how we're at with that. The transfer request, you can see, I think it's the very last page. We zeroed out everything. This is the end of the year, and how much that we're in zeroing it out. That we moved. I guess that's $2,172.68 of money that we had into the general fund, and just that was left over in the budgeted items. So now that becomes part of the general fund, because none of that was restricted funding that it was taken from. So, we have, and Rob, you'll have to sign one of these copies, your copy that you got there, so I can keep a record of it. The budget closeout, that is after your, minutes, and, one thing that I do want to bring to your attention is that, you know, one of the things that we've been looking at was on the water bill money, and where we were at with that, we were thinking we had like $20-some thousand in that account, but Wilma had not been putting, if I had not marked it on the bill that it was water bill money, she wasn't taking it out of the water bill funding. So one thing that we did decide is that this fiscal year, anytime she gets the bills, the invoices, she's to take it out of the water bill funding, and anytime we get reimbursed, she's going to put it back in. And that means from everybody, like from the residents to the resort, TVA, whoever's paying that bill. So that is always an accurate running account. You know, so she gets it, has to take it out. You know, like usually $3,000-4,000 a month is what it costs in chemicals and all of that stuff. We'll pay that up front, and she'll take it out of the water bill money. And then when they reimburse us for it, it'll just go right back in there. We currently, though, just have $7,796.45 in there. And that brings us up to date. That's with June's water bill money, you know, the reimbursement and everything that is owed.
That would be, so once they pay June,
That would go back into that, the money that we just billed, and then that, and any money that, Jordan just gave me $100 towards water money, so all of that would go back into that amount.
but you're saying the 7796 number?
Is minus June's, June's already been taken out of that. This is what we currently have left in there that's
Gotcha.
free and clear at this moment.
Gotcha.
Everything's been paid out
If
of
we
it.
can get May and then we can get June.
That would go in on top of that, but then July's would be coming out of that.
Right.
But yeah, it'll continually be a
So,
working budget.
Yeah.
So I think that's,
That would be a decent cushion if we could just stay current and we weren't having to spend more than, say, $3,000-4,000 in a month, hopefully.
well, even if we do, if we're getting it back,
Sure.
that's the main thing.
But we would like to not spend more than, say, 10 grand. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if we're ever gonna, seen some.
Yeah, we spent as much as 12,000 before, especially when we have like permits and
Yeah.
things like that has to be done. Like, I think our water plant permit is over $800 itself, so, you know, then when Dennis has to get his recertification done, Tim, and, you know, so yes, it can add up. And like also, if Carrie has picked up a lot of extra hours. And speaking of Carrie, just to keep you guys up to date there, you know, I almost lost her. She was just really, I think she's just burnt out. You know, she's working a lot in Robbinsville because they were having vacations and all these various things. And so she was like, I'm just like, I'm going to let this go. Her husband's gotten a raise, and she's like, I don't really need to, this money, you know, is more just spending money for her. But I told her to take the rest of the month off and that we'd revisit this because I was like, I really do not want to lose you. And I think she'll be all right after she, you know, has a break and gets some rest. So. She understands her importance to me and to us, you know, the council. So,
Yeah. Well, between, with, you know, Tim coming back, we should be able to possibly.
well, she's, you know, we're not doing no more than 1 day a week with her. I mean, she doesn't want to do it anymore now. But she had to, you know, first it was like, I'm not going to do anything. And then she was like, well, I'll do 1 day a month. And I'm like, take a break and let's talk again. Yeah.
She's definitely an asset. She knows her
Yeah,
stuff.
she is definitely an asset.
Absolutely.
She very much knows her stuff, and she's very very upfront and takes care of things, and I definitely want to keep her on board because, if there is any chance of anything opening up again, until we get water loss fixed, it's just, we can't do it with two people. And we have people that will need vacation. I mean, Tim and Dennis both will need vacations. We gotta have somebody besides just two people.
So with her not around, will Tim and Dennis, they're
Yeah.
able to handle it?
Well, yeah, Tim, Dennis is working 4 days and Tim's working 3.
That's what I was.
Yeah, so, and he's done a lot of weed eating and mowing and stuff down there, so. The bank down there at the water plant and all looks really good. It was really high. I think he bent our blade on the weed eater, but it's in the process. But it was over his head, and he's ate up the chiggers was his heart. He's just been, that was a vicious job, I'm sure. And I've been ate up with chiggers before too, and I know how.
It's no fun.
They're no fun.
No.
Have you ever done it?
Banana peel works wonders.
Banana
Did
peel.
it really?
Mosquito bites
Why, you just rub them on your
I
lips?
almost had that.
too. I tried it the other day.
The inside or the outside?
The inside, yeah.
Really? I've never heard that one.
I use
I've heard a lot of things.
I use nail polish. to
I've
get
used that before.
Yeah.
When a couple of years ago, I
Then
did
it does
engagement pictures over at the dam and at the overlook there, and there was like a tree limb that was jutted out in this tall grass, and she wound up on that tree limb, and we went out there and took that. I probably had 120 chigger bites on me.
Jeez.
And nothing helped them. It was just like, that was the most miserable of my life. It's a lot different when you're an adult than when you're a kid. You don't remember it when you're little.
So while we're talking about water plant stuff, what about the road going up to the main water plant up here? Has there been have you heard any discussion about that? About
No, I have not.
improving it to where, at least maybe,
I haven't really pushed that simply because most of the crew in maintenance is doing mowing and weeding, and that's basically what they're doing right now.
right.
I'm not even sure, they can't really even operate any of the resort's equipment at the moment because of they were made to park their trucks, the resort trucks and everything, so I don't think they can use any of the equipment until all this is resolved between TVA and Fontana Village Incorporated, so.
I just didn't know if Dennis had been still, if he's resolving some of the issues that he mentioned. I didn't know if that.
Yeah, I don't know. If he is, he wouldn't have done anything more than maybe just spraying and weeding or something. And I don't know that he's actually been up there because he had plenty to do down at both the water and wastewater because it hadn't been touched in a long time. So, but I drove down there the other day and it looks pretty good. One thing, and I told Rod this the other day, that I did find out I had to do some training in Powellville because it's all different this year. And looking at what it qualifies for expenditures, and one of the things is like you can do landscaping with Powellville money, so for roadsides and stuff. So I thought that might be something we might look at some future date as far as doing that bank down there by the water plant. To keep it from having to be weed eated, and because that's rough. That's a bunch of rocks, and it's just a hard area to take care of. That's why we have a bit of blade, so maybe putting in some bushes or some ground cover or something, that you wouldn't have to weed eat. So be something that we could look at.
All right.
Anything else? Of course, we didn't really zero out the utility funds just simply because that money, it wasn't our money that we budgeted. It was simply based on, what had been in the budget before. And it's reimbursement. It's not like all the rest of the budget that we have is our money that we're budgeting, money that we are expecting to either have in our account or that we already have in our account. And so that's why the utility fund was not cleared out. It's because that's really not our money anyway, even though we've been paying for it, and that is our money. I don't know if there's any other questions that you guys may have about anything. We still have a little bit of money left in our electrical fund. Our Jeff keeps asking about power poles, but I'm kind of under the impression now that TVA should provide some power poles. I would rather use the money that we have left in that to get them some much needed equipment. Because there's several things, tools and utility vests and reflector
How
stuff.
much is that again? I can't.
It is $6,429.72.
That's a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely purchase him some very much needed tools. There's some kind of bolt things that he needs, and it has to have a special grip, you know, because you're dealing with electrical stuff. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason. We've got the money. Let's see how things shake out.
yeah, I'm in no hurry to spend it. I mean, as a matter of fact, I mean, nobody's ever even asked anything about it. I don't know what happened to everybody that we got it from. They just are all go.
Do we still have any on the ground?
Any what?
Any poles on the ground?
I don't.
Have they used them all, or are there still a couple in?
I think they might have used them all, I think, and he asked me about it yesterday in front of the TVA guys, and I said, well, I'd ordered them, and I'd asked the woman to send me an estimation, so I could approve it, and I gave her my email, and I never got it back, and then everything went kaput, and so, and then when TVA came and took over as an electrical company, I figured that would be something they would provide, so I never did really revisit that. And so when he asked yesterday, that's pretty much what I said. I said, I figured TVA would supply any poles that was needed, and I could use this money to get you equipment that you need. Because I doubt if TVA would do that, but they should at least provide the poles, I would think.
At some point, whenever we start having more in-depth discussions, that will certainly be something we
Right.
can ask.
Yeah.
All right,
Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. If there is any questions, as you look it over later, you know where I'm at.
Budget closeout questions, John? You good? Good. Tiffany? Jordan? All right, okay. All right.
So, the money that's owed to us from Fontana, we had contacted the lawyer about a couple of things. The town lawyer, he actually does exist. He's been very hard to locate lately, but I asked him, because he has also represented the resort, and I wanted to ask him about that, but if it's a conflict of interest, of course he can't do anything with it. I didn't know if he was still representing the resort and all of the dealings with TVA, so when I asked him today, he said, unfortunately, yes, he was. So he couldn't really, we were trying to look at other means and ways, or what we need to do to try and collect the money, which is, over $80,000.
Yeah, could you tell us that exactly?
I don't have the exact number. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to look it up today. The phone is ring and ring and ring and ring. So I got hung up with that and did not have the opportunity to get an exact number. But we do know just from previous that it was 80,000. So I think there's been the reimbursements for some of the water bill money. It would be added into that. Not no more user fees because we haven't been providing those services, but it would be just the reimbursements of the water and wastewater.
But that wouldn't include the Mays, would it?
The what?
The May water plant reimbursement?
No, not at the no, none of that's been added in. And if I make the bill and send it to TVA, then I wouldn't add it into what was due. If
Right. I was just making sure that $80,000-ish
Yeah.
is not including any of these more recent reimbursements.
No, this is simply, it was user fees that were uncollected still. Right. It was reimbursements from last year that we had not. I think October was the last one we collected from last year, so we still had November, December. We agreed to give them January, February, and March, so then there would also be April. So those would be the reimbursement requests. So it's probably less than 10,000. That would be
reimbursements.
that would be added onto that. But when you're looking at 80,000, then that makes it 90,000. That definitely would do us
So
good.
you're saying the 80 is just user fees?
No, it's not just user fees, but it's a reimbursement request that we have previously had added up.
Right.
When we sent that letter out to them the last time.
Right.
And since then, we've had additional ones that has not been added into that. So that number,
The April one, really?
well, and probably just the April one, actually. You're absolutely correct, just the April
Because
one.
the January, February, March
Was a wash.
we were picking that up. Okay. I was just trying to get an idea roughly where we're at. I'd love to get an actual number on that. Just
Well, I
to
mean,
have,
I think, I'll look at the letter that we sent and add April into it. And that'd be-
yeah, once we get that number, then we can pursue, like, generally speaking, you know, we figure sooner or later, there's gonna be some resolution with regard to TVA and the resort as far as whatever their settlement's gonna be, you know. So, we're trying to get our ducks in a row so we can kind of have our hand out and ask it pretty please with sugar on top, if we can, you know, because $80,000 to $85,000 would go a long way.
TVA would pay that?
No,
Well, not
no, this would
necessarily,
be-
no, this would be Fontana Village
We're
Incorporated.
still, I mean, this was for services rendered pretty much back from about, I guess, what, September, October?
And maybe even further back than that.
It was right around there, user fees that go back to last year, that, you know, for all the services that we provided, trash services, road services, things of that nature.
Recycling.
So, you know, we've already provided the services and we haven't been paid, so we're hoping, you know, we don't want to just sit back and quietly hope. I think we want to maybe become a little more proactive on
And
trying
now-
to collect this debt.
Yeah.
And that was the purpose of getting hold of the lawyer, but since it is a conflict with them, then he said that he could recommend somebody else. But I may simply try to go through the league and talk with them, the League of Municipalities, and see if they can direct us and what would be the best option, you know, to go. Or if there is, I mean, it may just be, you
I don't
know,
know
it's
if
an
it-
unsecured debt because there was no binding contract between the two entities. So, you know, it may not be possible to collect any of it. I don't know.
If it's not, then I at least want people to know that, you know, this was not paid. and,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
that we definitely.
And this is not something, you know, this wasn't a gift that they didn't give us. We actually provided services for
Yeah, right.
this.
Exactly.
And, you know, the reimbursements as well, would be there as well. So, you know, I'm trying to be more proactive. And I guess
Right.
that's why I wanted to bring that up and I wanted to have some discussion. And I want to continue to have discussion every meeting. I want that to be sort of a, you know, that's becoming a priority issue because we're looking at our long-term stability and we're not feeling so stable these days. So.
Well, and that kind of brings me into the next thing too, is in talking with the lawyer, we had received a letter from, and we'll go back to the resort status, I guess, which isn't much, I mean, but anyway, we received a letter from TVA that was wanting, it was kind of an agreement between us and them that they could, what's the best way to summarize that, Rob? That they wanted to be able, I think basically what they're wanting to do is since they're paying Tim and Dennis, they are under their payroll, but we contracted with Fontana Village Resort for the employees down there. And so we were still over them, but they aren't our direct employees. And so now that TVA's taking over cover in that area.
It's a legal cover your backside since they're actually paying, they're employees of TVA or Baker. I mean, it's a bit of a convoluted sort of process here.
Because of everything.
But you know, I think it's more legal than anything else. And I think generally speaking, we had some concerns with the language. It was very open, very broad. It was essentially no objection to anything. And we were concerned that it was going to take, you know, potentially remove out the possibility for us to object to something in the future, should we have an objection. So we have asked John, town lawyer, to look at this. And we're in the process of working up some drafts. Right now, we're going to develop a draft and send it back to Bucky and ask him, Bucky Edmondson with TVA, and ask him, is this acceptable for your purposes?
And one of the reasons of bringing this up now is simply because the letter ends with the mayor's signature backed by the town council. So we wanted to make you guys aware, you know, that if he signs it, that this, you know, that it's in our best interest for him to sign it and it's backed by you guys. So
Once we have a viable draft, we will then, before I sign anything, we'll send it out to everyone and we'll have, you know, you can reply individually
To me.
to Zell.
And that doesn't violate any
And you can just tell us, you know, if you have any concerns, you can certainly raise them. There's a lot of legal jargon. I've seen 2 or 3 of the drafts thus far, and it's a lot of legalese.
You read it?
Maybe
couple
not
of
the
different
latest I
ones,
think
you
I've
know,
got
but
it
I'm still not happy with it, and I don't think Rob is happy with it either, so.
Y'all are doing
Yeah.
your own to come to
yeah.
What we're doing is Bucky submitted a letter for us, and he wanted us, he requested that we sign it, and we asked the lawyer to look at it. It took a little while to get him to have a look at it. But recently, as of, I guess, the end of this week, we've kind of been going back and forth with him. So he's actively involved in the discussion, and we just want to do our due diligence. We don't want to sign something we wish we hadn't signed, and not to mention, I think, the degree of bindingness of this is, according to the lawyer, you know, there's still some room. It's not really a letter of complete no objection. That's
Or
just
it's
gonna
not a
happen.
binding contract, you
Right.
know, he said, yeah, that, you know, the intent of the letter is to ensure that Dennis and Tim can continue to work down there, and that, you know, anything that had, you know, that the permits and everything will stay active as, you know, they have, and that is not any kind of effort to, you know, hold the town solely responsible for stuff. But as the case is, with a lot of legal language, if you don't make things really concise and clear, you can get yourself in trouble. And that's what we were concerned about. We wanted to make sure that we were being represented in you know, in a fair way, and that it wasn't binding us to something that we might not be unprepared or might not be prepared for. So.
And eventually, you know, the back and forth, if we get to a point where, you know, neither side is really comfortable with what the other side is proposing, we may have to have an actual meeting or a conference call or something to that effect. And, you know, just so we can hash out, you know, our position is this, their position is that, what can we live with in the middle? You know,
And then,
what do
of
they
course-
need, the specifics, because I would prefer to do it on a more specific basis rather than a general, broad basis.
And then there's also the fact that if a new leaseholder comes in and takes over, you know, and that's who we're then doing business with, I had talked to John about drawing up a more binding contract between the two entities so that we don't have this issue of not getting paid for something, you know, that we have already provided in the future, so.
Yeah, so the situation, you know, this letter would hopefully be sort of a stopgap, temporary thing that would bridge us through to when we would have a new leaseholder in the future, hoping. Which I think, did we talk about resort status much?
No, we did not, and, you know, there's not a whole lot to report. I do know that TVA, they had a big meeting Friday, and they were over here, but, things seem to be more agreeable in moving forward. I don't know, though, there's still no opening date planned. I think, though, you know, that they are not opposed to opening by any means, but it's a lawyer thing. It's always a lawyer thing, you know, that their lawyers and the resort's lawyers have got to get all those ducks in a row, and that takes time. And so hopefully, though, there is a light at the end at the rainbow, end of the rainbow, or in the tunnel, or wherever a light's supposed to be at. But
Supposedly things are moving along, but we're not at the end of that.
yeah,
that
we're not
tunnel
there yet. So.
And the hope is that once, I mean, I think in my mind, if we can get through this negotiation and the resort can be satisfied, you know, with whatever their settlement is, and hopefully the town could be involved in maybe talking with them, we may have to actually step in at some point and possibly, you know, make ourselves heard to both sides. You know, we've talked about the possibility of maybe seeing if TBA could go ahead and maybe pay the town directly, you know, as opposed to, you know, giving them the money and giving them the option. If they could help us sort of help ourselves, that would be wonderful. You know, we don't quite know, you don't want to overstep your bounds, but at the same time, you know, we do have a significant, you know, debt there that we don't want to just be standing there, you know, with nothing at the end of all of this, whenever, you know, without a seat to sit down, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess the next step would be, you know, then maybe we could look at, I think it's been rumored that there's a few least
Oh,
possible.
there's been like 9 or 10 people that have come, that have expressed, interest in the place, so, but they will not start any interview processes until they have actually completed and closed out with, the previous leaseholders, because at this point in time, it's still in limbo, and they can't speak as if they own the lease at the moment, when it's still basically in the shareholder's name, so.
Yep. Resolving that is step one, and then hopefully they can move forward with,
That sounds promising.
It is. I mean, at this point, the season is, the majority of the season's pretty much over. I would anticipate, we're probably, I'm not really thinking we're gonna open, but,
Well, and
don't
we're
quote me on
still,
that.
we're still under also even, 25 people outdoors or something, isn't that the limit? That,
I don't know.
yeah, I mean, there's still restrictions in place that the governor has put in. Is it 25 then?
Yes, I believe.
But
it
how is that with graduation though? I mean, how are they doing that? Just because of adequate spacing?
Oh yeah, I mean, but because I think they do base it off of footage. If you're in an actual venue or building or something, if you socially distance, then
Okay.
yeah,
I know that the list to get in is very extensive.
yes,
Everybody has to go in together, everybody gets their temperature checked, you have to wear a mask the entire time that you're in there.
you're getting split between
You
two
have to sit
entrances.
together.
You have to sit together. Yep,
Can't get up and move around.
right.
Okay. So as far as the resort status or this letter, John, do you have any questions about anything that you would like?
Thus far, or just resort status?
Yeah, I mean, do you have any general questions that we haven't touched on that you?
No, I mean, it's good to hear that there's multiple people maybe looking to buy it.
Yeah.
Might be some competition. Competition always does better in that way. It was like, oh, you want it? All right, here.
Yeah.
That's good. No, I think it's all great. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. Good? Okay. Jordan?
Good.
Good. All right. I just wanted to give everybody a chance, because there's a lot of things that kind of come under that umbrella, and I just wanted to give that opportunity. Other discussion items? Is there anything else that we?
Not that I've really had, I just wanted to leave the floor open in case there was something I was forgetting, today's been pretty hectic. I need to get this out sooner, and I apologize that I haven't been able to do that. It just seems like I have not been able to do that for whatever reason. I used to get them out like on the Friday.
Yeah.
I would like to get back to that, so hopefully that is my goal for the new year, is that I will get these to you on Friday, and you'll have the weekend and the first part of the week to look everything over, so.
Or maybe, maybe Monday. Monday afternoon would give you Tuesday to sort of mull some things over.
Or if somebody has something they want to add on it, instead of, you just don't like getting them at the very last minute on Wednesday.
How about you guys? Any issues, questions, concerns that you want to raise?
There is one thing that, the executive order involving water payment, water bill money, that you couldn't do any, you couldn't cut it off, you couldn't charge any extra for past due fees and stuff, is due to expire at the end of this month.
Right.
And we have several people, so I'm gonna be sending out a letter, and I'm gonna see if Dennis will deliver them for me to everybody that is currently past due, because you're supposed to give them 6 months, for them to repay. But as of, if it's not extended, then as of the end of the month, you can start charging late fees on August going forward. You can't do it from the March one through them, but you can't. And like I said, we have several people that are, I don't know how we're going to get them caught up, just to be honest.
Well, and weren't some of those actually carrying balances before we had the coronavirus issue? Would you be charging interest on those, or?
Well, I can't. Only from, I guess I could for the ones before the coronavirus hit, if there was those bills.
Right.
But, anything from the March on until the end of this month, providing that executive order does end. And when I turned in the report to the Water Commission, it was pretty hefty, you know, it was. I mean, like I said, I mean, not in a city, Robbinsville even, you know, or, you know, something like that, but for us, because I'm looking at every penny, and our budget is so small, and our money flow is so small, so to us, and to me, it's a lot of money, you know, that would be very beneficial to us at this time, so. I'm not sure what that entitles if I can't get these people to come down and set up some kind of payment plan.
How much money roughly collectively is owed on all this?
Well, I had the number and I sent that number in. I could go back and look, but I just
Okay.
don't have it on the top of my head.
I'll follow up with you on that,
But
that's
I would say just from the residents themselves, and of course this isn't counting resort money too, but
Right,
for the
that's fine,
residents
yeah.
themselves, it's probably over $1,000. You know, from the 4, 5, 6 people that owe. So, and some of them are people that have never been late. You know, that were very good about paying, but you know, they were all drawing unemployment. You know, and I sent out the notice. I said these bills are going to continue to be owed. You know, just because the state is saying we can't put any late charges on there doesn't mean that when this is all over, you're not going to have to pay all this, and it's going to be big if you've not made any payments. So, I have a copy of a letter that another municipality sent out that I'm going to take and pull and put our letterhead on there and send it out for our purposes. And we'll see what happens. Otherwise, we may be cutting off a lot of water.
How does that work?
Well, it would be, we have locks, and we go in under the house and turn the water off into the house, and then lock the thing, so that they can't get
Like
in
a
under
key
there.
lock?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, but it's the, you know, it's the door that goes in under there.
Yeah.
And then they can't go in under there and turn it back on.
They're not supposed to.
Yeah, well, I mean, they'd have to cut the lock.
Yeah, they could, you know, but then I think at that point, you're actually breaking a law.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
There is some recourse
Yeah.
that could happen at that
I
point.
was-
I think a lot of the people are, you know, or at least a few of the people that this affects are because they lived here before and didn't have to pay water bill, you know?
Oh.
I think that they think that it's kind of a joke, almost, that, you know, they have a reason, and that it's not a real fine, and you can get in real trouble, even in a place like Fontana, if you don't make the payments, you know, so.
Bottom line is if you want water, there you go.
Or you're not gonna be
It's a
living
flat.
here, and they can't, like, another thing too, because we have people sometimes that leave and then come back and leave and come back. They will not be able to come back and work for Fontana until that bill is, you know, or live in the village, let's put it that way, living in a house in the village until that bill is paid.
Right.
No.
So,
It follows you,
yeah, it
at
does,
least here.
here, yeah.
Has there been any word on the residents' ability to stay?
No, and I don't think that there is going to be anything, you know, I mean, it's so far into the game now, and I can't imagine that they'd all of a sudden say, you gotta go, you know, so, I mean,
I was wondering.
I do know that you know, when I was talking, because first I was talking to Jeremiah about, is there a way for you to get these bills out for me? But then I happen to think Dennis knows where everybody's at, I can just use him. And he did mention, well, I've got to start doing that for rent too, so you guys need to be aware of that.
That's fine. I'll talk to the man.
You know, so just so you know. But that was all that was said. It wasn't like, you know, everybody's going to have to leave. And it's like, what, you know, we talked about before too. I don't even know how far back I can go. I mean, I don't know.
We'll find out.
Yeah, certainly, you will. So,
Have there been any updates from the local government commission?
I have not talked to them in a couple of weeks. The last thing that I did was send them a copy of the letter that TVA had sent us. And
Okay.
they had advised against us signing it,
Okay.
which we already were not going to, so. You know, they, once they told us to do the interim budget, they pretty much left us alone.
Okay.
And probably will until it gets closer to the time of, actually getting the real budget, you know, or going into the real budget. And
Okay.
so, no.
It's for what, next month?
At the end of August, you know, so the September will be, September 1st will be when we need to be operating. I mean, I don't know, I can find out if we can extend an interim budget, I'm not sure if you can or not, I don't know.
No, I'm just, you know, saying that, you know, it's.
Well, I mean,
it's
if we
only
still
two-
don't, If we still don't
Interim.
know, you know, what the resort's gonna do, if there's
Right.
still not been anything settled there, and we're still up in the air about so much stuff, I mean, what would be the point of trying to go to a real budget when we still don't know how it's gonna work?
I don't know how many interims you can have.
I know, can we do that the whole year?
Every 2 months do another.
It's a 6-time renewal plan over the course of the year. Yeah.
Can we do that? I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's where we're at with everything anyway.
All right, well, if we have no other discussion items, we'll move to our action items here. The approval of the transfer request. Entertaining questions there, if no one has any concerns or questions.
Motion to approve the transfer request.
Thanks, John. All in favor? All right. The budget closeout, is fairly self-explanatory there.
I do want to mention one thing I forgot with the POW bill. We are going to move that into an interest-bearing account.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason for that, so it's not going to be part of, I mean, it'll still show up on the budget as it does, you know, but the reason for that is because and when you're doing the POW bill reports, there is a part there that says interest, you know, gathered for POW bill, and there's no way that we can see what that would be with it just intermingled with our general account. So we're, you know, it's still restricted funds and it's not getting spent, but it's not in its own account collecting interest. So we're going to move that probably this week into an interest-bearing account so that we can start collecting interest on it.
How many accounts do we currently have?
We have 3. And I might be able to put the one that it was for the wastewater, I might be able to just transfer that into the POW bill.
Was that an interest-bearing account?
Well, it might not have been the time, but we could still probably do that, yeah. So
That's what I thought we had.
we have like $1,000 and some dollars that was reimbursements that we put in towards stuff for the wastewater plant that we got reimbursed for. I still got sitting in there, but we can move that back into the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah, because you know, once it was done, that's our money now. So
Yeah, maybe
and
we can do that instead of.
having to open another
Yeah,
account.
we can just utilize
Yeah.
that account, move some money over.
That's
there.
what I'm hoping. And of course, you know, there is a very big shortage of coins at the moment. Has everybody been made aware of that?
Heard about it, but
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Wendy's right now, for every $10 roll, you get a free combo. If you sell them a $10 roll of like quarters or something,
Wow.
they will give you, it
I haven't
says
heard
it on
that.
their thing, you know, that they'll give you a
Where's
free
all the coins
combo.
Yeah, who's hoarding up the coins?
Well, it's just because of the COVID, the treasury has not been able to make coins and stuff. It's been shut down, so now there's a shortage on
Where's the
coins.
circulation of coins that were already out?
Well, they're probably in this bag I've got in here.
all the rolls are finally going Wendy's.
Because I probably have I have quite a bit of coins, quarters in there from the vacuum cleaner and the game room.
Couple thousand.
Well, I don't know if it's that much, but yeah, it would be too much to probably carry in at one time. Huh?
Oh, from the cars coming.
Yeah,
Although that thing's.
Yeah.
that's been a couple of
Seems
years
like
worth.
it's not working more than it's,
Yeah.
I probably got $5 or $10 that's in there that put money in and nothing happens. And-
Yeah.
Well, if that ever is
Yeah,
the
well,
case,
yeah.
let me know and I'll reimburse you for it because it'll be in quarters,
Well,
but
yeah.
you know, still. But it's probably the fuse that's on that pole because with Ricky hooked up there, I think it keeps tripping that
It
fuse.
was before Ricky, but I'll go check it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it up there and is it a fuse I can access?
Yeah, it's supposed to be right there. Ask Jeff about it or somebody about it. Or Dennis, even Dennis will probably know too. I don't know where it's at either, but I think it is right there where he's at. So, and I know before, like, he's turned it off, whether, you know, for whatever reason, I mean, accidental or whatever. So, that might be something.
So, with the budget closeout approval, anybody have no questions, entertaining
I
motions?
make a motion we approve the budget closeout.
Thanks, George. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have any other action items.
We don't need to do any closed session.
And we don't have any need for closed session to discuss anything. So our next meeting is scheduled to be August 19th.
Doesn't that sound like crazy?
Yeah.
To think it's August?
We're my first week back to school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
August 19th?
Yeah, well, that week.
It starts on the 17th, so yeah, it'll be 2
You
days.
think
Yeah.
you'd be good at 5 o'clock here as far as making
Yeah, you get out at 3:30-ish.
that? And I guess it's some point. I mean, I guess so. thinking about the logistics, we'll probably have to put together, assuming we're gonna have to do a regular budget, we'll have to do that, and then we'll probably have to come back and we'll probably have to continue that meeting, you know, we'll have to,
Do a budget hearing again?
yeah.
I
We'll have to
think, maybe,
advertise.
I'm not sure, that's something I'll confer with
Yeah.
LEC about to make sure we're following.
But we do have
proper
that, we do have that window, I guess. Let me see what the end of August looks like.
Oh, that we still have that time period?
Right, if we needed to run an ad, and do all of that business.
Well, we'd be able to get it in that next week's paper, but it'd have to be like that if you have to do it by the end of that August, or the end of that month, because
Well, if
we'd have
they
a
say
paper
that-
on the 20th and the 27th, so you could, if we have the meeting on the 19th and it's continued, we could put the ad in, but then you'd have to call like a special day of the week. You probably could do it on that Wednesday.
No, it would be I think the 31st is a Monday.
Yeah.
So we would be able to get it in there by the end of the month, I think.
Yeah, for the
We could
27th.
we could get the ad
Well, what I can
following
do
day.
though is, I'll find out if that's what we do in fact. If we can't continue with the, you know, an interim budget, what are the requirements? And
Right.
if we have to go to a regular budget, do we have to advertise again, have a budget hearing and do all of
I
that
thought it
stuff?
was all standard.
Well, and it may be, I'm not
Protocols.
sure. And does that also affect our TDA budget then too? Because it's on an interim budget as
Yeah,
well.
I would say
You know.
we're likely gonna have to do the same thing.
But if I can ask them that any time, and if they're saying, yes, that's what you gotta do, then I can get with you plenty of time to
Sure.
get that in
Sure.
at the appropriate time that we need.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, then, okay. So we
So if
may
we-
not have to have a special meeting at the end of the month, we may be able to go ahead and approve, is what you're saying? If we
Yeah,
can get
and-
in ahead of time enough at the beginning of August or something to that effect,
right, yeah,
which will be coming up shortly, I guess.
yeah.
Oh, so there was one other thing, I think,
Well, no, it would be the beginning of August, it would have to be the beginning of September. Because the interim budget is good for July and August.
right.
So we
But
would
we
have.
need to have something in place by the beginning
Yeah,
of
but I
September.
mean, like, though, if I talk to them and we could, like, advertise it, we could just, if they say we've got to do that, I can have it by our next meeting, you know,
Did you read?
to where it'd be in the paper and
Oh, okay.
advertise, we'd have the budget
So
hearing if
if-
we needed to do that.
Okay,
you
so
know,
we might be able to just progress on a normal schedule.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. We'll find that out.
Yeah,
We're supposed to, Zell and I are gonna be meeting with a representative of the League of
Mhm.
Municipalities on, July 30th, Thursday.
yep.
He's gonna be here, I think. They don't want us to drop our membership with them, and we have.
I
have
did,
the
yeah, I
money.
did pay the dues for last year, and so they have expressed, you know, that they can waive this year's dues, and but that we'll have to pay next year, but we wouldn't have to pay until following year, which would be 21, 22. And if things have not changed, then of course we'd have to then drop out, but they really are very much wanting to hold on to us for whatever reason, and they have good resources. I mean, you know, like I said, I've used their lawyers before, so, you know, I can ask them about this, you know, about the money that's owed to us and.
He's gonna be in the area, and he wanted to kind of stop by and. sort
And
of
he has
discuss
all
the
this
situation.
experience also as a town manager and stuff, and so he thought maybe he might be able to help
So
us.
Zell and I are gonna meet with him, what time?
1
1 or
o'clock,
2 or
okay,
something?
is that, yeah, 1 o'clock, okay, yeah.
So just so you guys are aware. And that's all I have. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Otherwise, we will adjourn at 6:08.